Hi, friends. Many years ago, I had, along with a good missionary friend here in Tijuana, a blog that we called Money Missions. We were questioned multiple times about how does that make sense? How do those two words go together? Maybe I'll get to that in a future video, but I asked that friend, and maybe I'll talk about him in a future video if I get his permission. From now, we'll just call him my good friend from back in the day. I asked him if he had, we've long since shut down the blog. After shutting down the blog, I received an email from a long-term missionary here in Tijuana that asked if we still had the blog someplace, and I said no, and she said, well, because it was so nice to read and it was so useful, and I wanted to send it to somebody. Obviously, I was taken aback, and humbled's not the right word. I just thought, you gotta be kidding me. She's so much smarter than me, has so much more experience than me. How could she possibly be interested in a blog that I have, or had? And for many years, I forgot about it. By years, I mean, looking back on this right now, it was written in 2006. So I asked my good friend about, let's see, how long ago? Well, almost a year ago, if he had the files, and sure enough, he did. He's that type of a guy. So he sent me the files, and the very first article I wrote, is titled, "What is a Real Missionary?" And I thought of putting the blog back into some sort of a blog, but I don't know if anybody reads a blog anymore, and to be honest, I am lazy to do it. 2-3 decades ago, I used to listen to Imagination Theater in Seattle, and I loved it. I loved listening to it on the radio, and I loved listening to people read, and I don't pretend to be that caliber, but, well, I'm hoping you'll find this interesting. I don't pretend that any of these are profound missiology, and I don't know if I agree with all that I wrote 15 years ago, 16 years ago. But I thought, well, I better start off at the first one. So, what is a real missionary? Written in 2006. A couple of months back, I was told I was not a real missionary. As I sat in the offices of a nonprofit that I work with, I was a volunteer, not even with them. I was at a friend's office. In walked an overly energetic couple with a list of plans to single-handedly fix and improve Tijuana. Their monologue rattled off future trip dates and truckloads of donations, intermixed with name-dropping on both sides of the frontera, the border. Without taking a breath, the woman asked, "Who are these two?" pointing to myself and my good buddy, who I'll keep unnamed. Sarah, who works in the office, introduced us. As if we were mute, the lady then asked Sarah, "What do they do?" Sarah responded, "They're missionaries in Tijuana." Dumbfounded and perplexed, she asked, "What do you mean missionaries?" "Well, they're regular missionaries in Tijuana," Sarah repeated, quite confused. The woman, all the more bewildered, said, "Oh, because our church sends out real missionaries who go to all parts of the world for 2 years." Good judgment kicked in as Sarah replied, "Oh, that's nice," and changed the subject, which the woman quickly took over and off to who knows where. My good friend and I sat in complete silence until they left the room. When the door shut, we busted out laughing. What the heck was that? I mean, in a way, who cares? But what was she getting at? After a bit of discussion, it surfaced that the woman and her husband were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Okay, that solves it. But man, What are we then? And what is a missionary? Webster's dictionary has got 4 definitions. Number 1, a person sent by a church into an area to carry on religious or humanitarian work. 2, a person who attempts to persuade or convert others. 3, pertaining to religious missions. 4, characteristic of a missionary. Before I hit I-5 south to Mexico, my church did pray for me during the regular Sunday service. So, I guess I qualify for number 1, a person sent by a church. All Christians are given the Great Commission, so any believer should lovingly go for number 2, a person who attempts to persuade or convert others. And number 3 and 4 seem to be addendums to the first 2 definitions. So it seems that I fit nicely into the definition, like it or not, by the name badged real missionaries.